In this video, we're going to be taking a look at some of the overall theme editing and controls that we've built into our themes homepage editor that can have some impact that's more kind of site-wide, even though it's not just strictly for the homepage. We've used the homepage editor to kind of build in some easy access general theme editing items. Depending on your user level that you're logged in with, some of this you may see, some of this you might not see. You can always let us know if there's something you don't have access to that you need access to, or if you don't have access to it and trying to make a change, we're always happy to help make that change for you as well. So pretty much any page that we built and designed for your site that wasn't like a standard blog post we might have migrated over from a previous site of yours, or kind of a standard kind of text layout page that we migrated from your live site, or maybe it's a brand new site and it's just kind of a standard page with just a little bit of content and not really a design was presented for that page. You're pretty much always going to see a section called flexible content, and that is our tool that we have built into the theme to give you access to content editing for your pages without having to access code. And maybe some of it will have a little bit of HTML or something like that in there, but the goal is to give you an easy, flexible way to modify content without really having to know how to modify code like HTML or CSS. Things like that, kind of give you more of a drag and drop, copy paste type editing experience. So you should see those across the majority of your pages, and when that's expanded, it'll have the different sections that are being used for content throughout that particular page. But we're going to take a look at your homepage editor, some of the other options that you might see that kind of go throughout your entire site. So for instance, your site's footer. We'll have some settings there to control your footer. So most of the sites, and if yours looks a little different, you might see some slight variations, maybe some different fields you can edit. But our kind of core setup typically always has, a footer and then a copyright bar across the bottom as well. And again, if your footer structure is different than kind of what we see here, we would have added and built into the backend editor of these footer settings for you to still modify as needed based on whatever kind of customizations or changes we might have done for your particular site. So for this one, we're looking at this footer settings. It has a couple different tabs. The footer copyright tab, that's going to be to just control the links that you want to place down in your copyright bar of your footer. So currently a terms and conditions link and a privacy policy link. So you have a field to put in the link of where it's supposed to go. If it's going to any page on your site, you don't need to put in your domain name.com /the page slug. You can just put in /the page slug. That's called a dynamic link versus a static link. So if you were ever to change your domain name, you don't have to worry about updating links throughout your content to other pages on your site because they're dynamic. This ending slug would just get applied to your new domain name. So that's the only reason why we suggest linking dynamically, just in case you ever are going to change your domain name. It keeps those dynamic and will apply to the new domain name without needing to manually go in to a bunch of different places on your site and update internal links. And then you'll have a field for that particular link's text, how you would like that text link to read on the front end of the page. Then you have your general footer content. So taking a look through, that's going to be this general content that's found inside your footer. So your company name, your address, and then your quick links menu where you can add and remove quick links. You have the ability on the right to hover and click add or remove. Wherever you click add, it inserts it right above the item you clicked on, but you can hover over the number and drag and drop it into any order that you would prefer. You can always just also click add row and it'll add it immediately to the bottom. And if there's a link you wanted to get rid of, you just hover across that line on the right side until you get the plus and minus icons. Hovering over the minus, you'll see it says remove row. Click that and it'll just make sure you want to perform that action, and then it'll remove it for you. And that's just a simple footer menu and footer content editor. There are some variants to kind of toggle based on what your footer has set up. Based on your current footer, we would have placed the appropriate toggle. But there is a potential variant where we have some less information, and we're just doing like a contact form and a menu. Then there's a toggle for that, and it adds in the center menu. So you don't really want to change that because your footer would have been structured the way it needs and the correct variant chosen. And if you were to change the variant and fill stuff out and then you publish it, your footer may not be laid out and structured exactly how you want. So this might be an item that when you want to kind of restructure your footer, might be best to come through Bizcor support first, give us an idea of what you're trying to change, and maybe let us help you with that, because the footer would have been pre-structured for the content that it houses during the design and development phase of your new website. Then there's a footer fonts section. So we have a font customizer on the homepage that applies fonts throughout the theme. But for your footer, you might want to not pull some of the sizes and stuff from that customizer that our team would have set during the design and development process for you as well. But maybe you want to increase some of the titles in your footer. You want to increase the menu link size, and maybe increase your contact info font size. You can do that independently for your footer and not disrupt kind of the core theme font settings that we had set during the initial development. Then you can have a global content edit. This is just where there's some small details that are kind of global throughout the entire site. These are things that we do go through during development and set, but if we needed to change, wanted to give some easy ways to change those. If we wanted to use our font customizer, there's a toggle for us to say custom and use the fonts that we set here. Otherwise, original would be fonts that are kind of set in the code of the website themselves. A 404 page, in case anybody accesses a link that's a bad link, don't want them to go nowhere, so we had built a 404 page, just an easy place to set the background image of that page. And like I said, most of these are going to be set during the design and development, but there are some tools here to like add breadcrumbs at the top of the page, so as people click through different pages on your site, it'll kind of show breadcrumbs that tracks the path that they took to go through your site, and then some toggles to kind of have a standard text link or one with a little bit more style that kind of looks more like a button with a background color. You can turn those on and off. And then some pages that have a right sidebar, there's some global settings. So like if you have a right sidebar on any of your pages that has a featured rental, it's a spot where you can kind of change all pages that use that right sidebar to set the featured rental that you actually want, define its name, a link to the property, add an image for the property, and then define how many bedrooms, bathrooms, and guests that it has. And then you also have global info. This is where we set your logos. We have two different fields, so that if you have one version of your logo in the header and you have a slightly different version of the logo in the footer, just make it easier to give you a spot to upload those files so you don't have to access any code. If you wanted to, any place the site has an email field, if you want to auto-populate that, instead of doing it page by page, you can put the email address for displaying kind of throughout your site, and the same thing for the phone number. So let's say if I wanted to change the phone number in my header, the phone number in my footer, and the phone number on my contact page, and I just want to do it one time, there's a spot that you can do that there. And then from there, we're going to go into header settings. These you wouldn't really want to touch too much, because these are more starting points for our development team based on how your header's laid out, whether it's a centered logo or your logo's on the left, does it have a split menu or not, those kind of details. It just kind of helps the core structure, and then we follow what was designed for your site and kind of modify within the code accordingly to make sure it looks good and functions the way we designed it to. So you might want to be careful if you have access to these and are changing any of these. It may not produce a result that's perfect. Might need some cleanup on our developer's end. But the centered logo, based on the logo file, do we need to do a drop shape, or is the header just going to run straight across? If it's a bigger logo that has a title and a graphic and a tagline vertically stacked on top of each other, it might be hard to really fit that into a thin header. So we usually do some type of drop shape. So we just have some preset drop shapes to help us pick which one fits best for your logo, and which fits best from the design that was provided as well. So then we just go through and toggle these and then modify the code as needed. And then a field to change a custom font size for your links. So some of this you might need a little bit of Bizcor's help if you were trying to change any of those, but those options might be available, so I wanted to point out what they do. And then most sites, if you have an icon for like an envelope, usually will trigger some type of contact form with a flyout. So there's some settings there that we use to kind of control that, and same thing for your mobile menu. Your mobile menu might pop out from the side or just drop straight down. So those are just kind of general settings to change how that functions. Again, might be something that may not give a perfect result because we need to update some stuff in code in terms of styling and things. So just be careful when playing with those settings and updating. You may not get the result you want, and that's perfectly fine. If you are trying to make a change, Bizcor's here to help you get the result you're looking for. And then from there, you're going to have the site colors. So the way we build the sites is anything that applies a color is going to follow one of these variations, either the main color, a secondary accent color, a color for hover effects. So like a button that you hover over, does it change color? Does it highlight? Things like that. We'll be talking to this hover. And then maybe we're having, different, a button is one color, we want it to hover to another color, but it's somewhere else around the site we have a different color for a button and we want it to hover to a second color on hover. So we have a field for that. And then we have a dark color that's typically going to be applied to, standard headings, body, paragraph type font, and stuff like that throughout our different sections. And that might vary a little bit based on your design. But this is the overall color settings for the theme. Now you can use the color picker and the transparency slider on the right to choose your color, and you can always just paste in a hex code for the color that you would like to use as well. And then we have a font section that is tied to Google Fonts database. So you can choose for all of your headings, through your paragraph font, through your header navigation font, and your homepage banner font, which would be this font above the search bar, where you can set the font family, the font size, and if that font has variants for weight, maybe like regular, bold, italic, thinner lines, thicker lines, things like that. Here's a good example. This is the font weight, how thick the font looks. Is it italicized or not? You can choose those variants as well. And that list always correlates to what is available for that Google font in the Google Fonts database. And then those apply throughout the entire theme. So if you set an H1 font and change it anywhere on your site within content that has headings, if they are set up in the code to be an H1, that font change that you made would apply to those fonts. And again, that might be something that you don't see you have access to. Bizcor is always happy to help adjust those fonts. And if you don't have access and need it, just reach out and we'll see what we can do there. But we're always happy to help get any of those changes done for you.